I've got a difficult type of question that I'm going to show you how to deal with today. You may have noticed on the SAT some questions that feature a paragraph and a blank at the end, and the question that asks you to logically complete the text. These are inference questions, and they are hard. They are hard because they're asking you to find something that the text says indirectly. This is very important. Direct statements are straightforward. They are sometimes called explicit statements, and no guessing is needed to understand them. Indirect statements are sometimes called implicit statements, need you to make an inference or an educated guess to properly understand them. Let me give you a few examples from real life of how this could work. If you see a customer walk into a store with a frown, with an angry expression, and they walk up to a cashier and they say, "I need to speak to the manager," what the customer is saying is that they have a problem and they need someone to help fix it. Now, those aren't the words that they use, but you can figure out what they mean based on the tone of voice, based on the facial expression, based on the fact that they're asking for the manager, whose job it is to help solve problems. Based on all of that evidence, we can figure out what it is they actually mean. Or if a friend says, for example, "You don't want to watch that movie because you're not going to be happy about it." What they mean is that the movie was boring or unentertaining or unenjoyable for some reason. That's not exactly what they say, but based on the context of their words, you can figure out what they mean when they say, "You're not going to be happy if you watch that movie." So, don't expect answers to inference questions to be direct. Students are often frustrated with inference questions because they look at the choices and they think, "None of these are in the text. How can I possibly find the correct answer?" Well, they're right. None of the answer choices are stated directly in the text, but you shouldn't expect the choices to be direct. You should expect them all to be indirect statements. Well, how on earth can you find the correct answer then if all of them are indirect? You look at what the text says directly and use that as evidence to eliminate the answer choices that can't be correct and find the one choice that is correct. Let me show you how this works in practice. Nearly a quarter of the total CO2 emissions are absorbed by the Earth's oceans every year. Despite being the second smallest ocean, the Southern Ocean has absorbed almost 40% of the CO2 emissions created by humans. The University of Colorado Boulder research team analyzed over 1 million surface ocean observations spanning 13 years, revealing subtle differences between CO2 trends in the atmosphere and the surface ocean. Their findings indicated that during winter, CO2 absorption was particularly significant near the frigid Drake Passage. Although the researchers aren't sure of the exact reason why the Southern Ocean serves as an effective CO2 emissions sponge, they have concluded blank. Okay. And the question says, which choice most logically completes the text? This means that we are dealing with an inference question. We should not expect the correct answer choice, or any choice for that matter, to reflect something that the passage says directly. All of the answer choices are going to be indirect statements, and we need to figure out which three indirect statements cannot be correct based on what the text told us, and which indirect statement is correct, again, based on what the text told us. So again, this is important. We should modify our expectations. When we look at the answer choices, none of them will be things that the passage says directly, and that's okay. We're just going to use what the passage does say directly to figure out which three are incorrect and which one is correct. Let's look at the answer choices. Choice A, there is insufficient data to make any reasonable assumptions. Okay. Insufficient data to make any reasonable assumptions. Well, at the end of the passage, we read, although the researchers aren't sure of the exact reason why the Southern Ocean serves as an effective CO2 emission sponge, they have concluded blank. Now, if they're not sure of the exact reason, can we say that we can't make any reasonable assumptions? Sounds like the passage is saying the opposite here. And if I look in the middle of the text says the team analyzed 1 million surface ocean observations. 1 million surface ocean observations is quite a lot of data. Can we say that there's an insufficient amount of data when the team has reviewed 1 million surface ocean observations? By the way, over a period of 13 years? Probably not. This can't be correct because the text says scientists aren't sure of the exact reason, which doesn't mean they can't make any reasonable assumptions. And the text says that the team has observed over 1 million surface ocean observations over the period of 13 years. Based on those reasons, we can eliminate choice A. Let's move on to choice B. The Southern Ocean likely only absorbs CO2 emissions during the winter. Well, what does the text say about when the Southern Ocean absorbs CO2 emissions? Well, the passage says that during winter, CO2 absorption was particularly significant. Near the frigid Drake passage. But particularly significant means that there were other times when these emissions happened. If it's particularly significant during the winter, that means during the spring, summer, and fall, absorption does happen. It's just not as much as it is during the winter time. For that reason, we can eliminate choice B. Let's move on to choice C. The Southern Ocean is just as efficient at absorbing CO2 emissions compared to other oceans, but the size increases its impact. Okay, what does the text say about the Southern Ocean's absorptions in comparison to the absorptions of other oceans? Well, the text says that the Southern Ocean is the second smallest ocean, and it has absorbed almost 40% of CO2 emissions created by humans. 40%. That doesn't sound like it's just as efficient compared to other oceans. That sounds like it's absorbing more than the other oceans are absorbing. For that reason, we can eliminate choice C. Let's move on to choice D. The colder temperatures contribute to higher CO2 absorption rates. Now, this is the only choice that we have left, but we should still look back at the text to make sure that there is evidence for it. And what evidence do we see that colder temperatures help the ocean absorb more CO2? Well, as we said earlier, we saw that during the wintertime, CO2 absorption was particularly significant. It did happen during other times, but it happened more during the winter. Wintertime is cold. That's evidence that colder temperatures contribute to higher absorption rates. We saw that it's significant near the frigid Drake Passage. Frigid means very cold. That's more evidence that colder temperatures contribute to the higher absorption rates. So, because we've found great reasons to eliminate the other three options, and we found evidence to support choice D, we can select choice D as our answer. So remember, always look for evidence in support of the correct answer choice and against the incorrect answer choices. And remember, have the right expectations. The right answer is not going to be a direct one. You'll need to make an inference or an educated guess to figure out which of the indirect statements given in the answer choices is correct and which of them can't possibly be correct. It'll be hard at first, but it'll get easier with practice. And a great place for you to practice is on our platform at Test Innovators. The question that we looked at today actually came from our free sample test that you can find on testinnovators.com/SAT. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more helpful SAT content, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.